Tyson Geik of the NHL Flash here with Sportsnet, Sam Cosentino. Sam, you spend a lot of time working with the CHL and overlooking all these players. Having done so, which team do you feel comes away the strongest after the draft?
I think Calgary, like in terms of their big club, Calgary. I mean, you look at getting Dougie Hamilton, then they went out and drafted a couple of high-risk, high-reward defensemen, Erasmus Anderson and Oliver Shillington. They stayed at home with Pavel Karnikov, who's a forward, who's a skilled guy. So I think they did a really good job there, just mixing and matching and giving up that 15th pick. And then I look at the Boston Bruins, pretty much hitting the reset button. You know, trading away players and acquiring all kinds of picks, 3 consecutively in the first round, and I think they did a really good job, especially later on with guys like Jesse Gabriel. So those would be the 2 teams that we might take away at least so far, but in terms of improving the big club, the NHL club. But obviously when it comes to improving the prospect pool, we probably don't know the answer to that from about 3 to 5 years from now.
Yeah, anytime you have a draft like this, you must want to fast forward 3 to 5 years to see which players are going to pan out. But which players do you feel are going to make the easiest transition to the NHL, and which players might we see next year?
We always look at the top guys. I mean, and what becomes interesting sometimes are the European players, the Mikko Rantanens of the world, the Pavel Zakas of the world, who are big body guys, Lawson Crouse. Those would be the type of guys that you would expect to be able to handle the rigors of what the National Hockey League has to offer. So those would be just a couple of guys off the top of my head. I mean, McDavid and Eichel, I don't even include those guys in the conversation. They're surefire bets to play with their respective teams and be really good in the National Hockey League next year. But you always find the odd surprise guy in there, and then you always find a couple of guys that'll play to that 9-game limit, a few more that'll play to that 40-game limit. But it'll be interesting to see who, other than the guys that we've discussed already, would make it either the 9 or 40-game limit in the National Hockey League.
The Maple Leafs traded away their second first-round pick twice in this draft, and they were stockpiling draft picks in later rounds. What do you think that says about the depth of this draft?
Well, I think what it says is that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going in a new direction. Small, skilled, speedy forwards, puck possession, play the game at a high pace. And, those guys aren't going to arrive on the scene for a little while, but I think they really wanted to kind of to restart the organization, if you will, almost in the same vein as what Buffalo did. They were very intent on keeping Mitchell Marner with the 4th pick and then kept trading back to acquire more and more picks. So just getting those prospects into the system, allowing them to work either in Orlando in the East Coast League with Sheldon Keefe and the Toronto Marlies, or returning to their respective junior clubs to continue on that development path. But Mark Hunter has a pretty good eye, even going back to his time with London. So although he came on midstream, I think he's very familiar with this age group, because oftentimes he's recruiting this age group to go and play for the London Knights. So there's a lot of familiarity there.
Sam, extremely early. The draft is over now, but is it too early to start making predictions for next year?
Yeah, I think so. You know what? We're just everyone here is just having been so consumed by what's happened here the last 2 days that the 2016 class hasn't really crossed the minds of most of us yet. Although Austin Matthews is a name that's going to come to the forefront immediately, and he's probably the projected #1 overall guy. After that, I'd probably have to go through a book. It's been a couple of really long days here.
Thanks a lot, Sam. That's Sportsnet, Sam Cosentino.